Wow, hi. So great to see such friends and colleagues, as well as new folks that we met at Developer Week here tonight, and folks from EFF. First, my name is Vahid Razavi. I run a tech company called BizCloud, and we cover the tech sector extensively. And this week was Developer Week. So we are holding this event in conjunction with Developer Week. As well, I represent an organization recently that I started called EthicsInTech. And EthicsInTech is really focused on the ethical use of technology and how it can expand or curtail our individual rights and freedoms. And as somebody who's been in the tech sector for a long time, I can tell you that I have my concerns just like you do. And I think some of those concerns are best addressed through comedy, because it seems to be the only way that we can sometimes get a crowd together, talk about issues that are really serious. So tonight, we organized an amazing set of panel members and comedians. And we're, of course, recording this. One copy is for us, one copy is for the NSA. And so we will be sharing this extensively online. But before we start, I'm going to ask you all to do me a favor. I'm going to ask you to please take any cell phone or digital device you have, bring it up out of your purse, out of your bag, out of your pocket. So raise it up high. And go ahead and make sure it's unlocked. Is it unlocked? Better yet, just pass it over to the person to the left of you. Well, you don't have somebody on the left, lucky you, but you still get a phone. Pass it over. Don't be shy. No, this is going to be fun. Have them go through the contacts. Let them go through the Rolodex. See your messages. Open up your apps. Tell me, who's here using Blender or Tinder? Who's the one that's using various apps? Thanks, Justin. If you would, what are some of the messages? Now, I don't know about you, but that experience makes me feel uncomfortable, just even asking it. And there's a point to that. That's what's actually taking place right now with the NSA. Everyone here, because of our metadata and because of our proximity, is now associated together. That means Peter Ffoulkes from 451 Research Group, he's here as representing himself, is now associated with Vahid Razavi from BizCloud, with Justin Hall, the NSA volunteer, who's going to be on stage after me, with the Electronic Frontier Foundation, with the folks that are here from Developer Week. And if you think about it, the fundamentals of any democracy is free association. And by this association, that if we ever assemble, we're now associated together, that is now taken away from us. So that's the real reason we want to have these kinds of discussions. I like being associated with you. I consider myself very fortunate. Aww. And it's so nice to see that in the eyes of the NSA, we're all considered brothers and sisters. So that's okay. I'm really proud of that. So first, give yourself a big round of applause, and please welcome Justin Hall, our NSA volunteer.
Hi, thank you guys so much for coming out and joining this conversation tonight. As Vahid mentioned, I'm here as a volunteer for the NSA, and I want to tell you a little bit about my background so you would understand how I came to be in that position. So I've spent about 20 years writing about my life on the internet, and I've put a lot of my life on the internet. I've put tax returns and divorce and death and the stories of things that have happened to me, because I believe that personal stories have power, and if you share personal stories, you can connect with people. So I like to think that most people have most people's best interests at heart, and I'm sort of an optimist that way, and so far I've been fortunate that by sharing I've been able to connect with wonderful people like Vahid and others who because we share, we connect. So when I was thinking about, all this news came out that the National Security Agency was archiving people's data, I wanted to assume the very best about it because, I think these people our tax dollars pays these people. So that would, I think, instill in them a certain sense of responsibility and honesty. They're government workers for us, on our behalf. And furthermore, I thought, these people, they want to do good. They go to work every day. I don't know if you guys have jobs, but when you go to your job, you think you're trying to serve some common good. You're trying to advance the human cause. So I thought, if there are these NSA people who go to work and are doing all this surveillance, what if they're doing it on our behalf? And what if it's a good thing? And I came to see this project within the NSA. It's called Citizen Cloud. And if you research it on the internet, and you look up Citizen Cloud, what you'll see that the NSA is preparing to offer all of us free cloud backups of all of our data. So I don't know how many of you pay for Dropbox, or iCloud backups, or Google Drive, or all these different services. The funny thing is, if you take the value of Dropbox, this internet startup company was valued recently at just over $8 billion. Well, it's wonderful. Yeah, it's a big amount of money, but do you know the budget for the NSA? 1 year, $20 billion. So the wonderful thing is that with our tax dollars, we're funding a free alternative for everyone to store their data, and for everyone to have access to this kind of great backup in the sky. And not just, a few photos and documents that you drag into a specific folder on your hard drive, but your phone conversations. And the places you went and the people you were with, as Vahid alluded to. And so if you think about what the very best is that our government could do, this is your chance to make Citizen Cloud a part of your life. So if you go on the web, you can actually find the phone number for the NSA's Office of Public Affairs. And I encourage you to reach out and connect with those people who work there. Because you pay them, and they want to do right by you. So you can ask them, can you help me get my backups? Can I help you get my backups? Because if we believe that they are working in our very best interest, then they're the same as any other company that hosts our data for us, right? A Google, a Facebook, a Twitter, they all have our stories and our private correspondence and our record of where we've been. And so to trust at least the government, as someone was pointing out, at least they're regulated. At least eventually they can be held accountable. So I'm here to speak to a vision of the way our government might be helping us with our personal data. What we call data today is tomorrow's history. So we're all contributing to this public commons of internet data, and it's so wonderful to imagine, if you take it to its logical conclusion, maybe someday we can all be so comfortable with ourselves and with each other that our NSA Citizen Cloud backups could just be open. And that all the data that you have, people could browse it, they could come to know you better, they could come to know your social networks, your correspondence, and you just, what would you have to hide in that kind of a world? And if you think about that kind of disclosure, then it's really not so scary what the government's doing. It's really kind of inevitable. Thank you.
Yay!
Wow. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it. How about a big round of applause for Justin Hall and Citizen Cloud Initiative. So now we have a near and dear comedian, Zahra Nourbakhsh. She is an Iranian comedian, and she believes that all atheists are Muslim. So, Zahra, get on stage. We want to hear what you got. Come on up. Big round of applause for Zahra, please.
Thank you, Vahid. I get to say his name the Farsi way. But everyone else is like, who? What was her name? Zara. My name is Zara. Hi, how's it going? You guys are here. That's a camera. They can't talk to me, but you can. You are present. You are visual. The lights are up. I can see you. How's it going? Okay. Everyone is present. Good. Thank you. We have one audience member. This is great. And he's on the panel. What's going on here? My name is Zara. I have a one-woman show that is what Vahid was talking about. Does everyone call him Vahid? Is that how it gets translated? I'm curious about this. I'm in the weird name club.
How do you say it?
That was like very sexy. How do you say it? Well, I say it in different ways, in different positions. I just think it's funny because like in Farsi there are these like beautiful names, like Golbahar is like this beautiful name, and in English it's like Golbar, like a Viking. Why would you name your kid that? It sucks. And the other day, like there's everyone who has a weird name has like a Starbucks name, right? Right? Yes? You guys are like Persian looking because you're well dressed. That's how I knew. People ask sometimes, what's the difference between a Persian and an Iranian? What is that? What's a Persian? What's an Iranian? Why do you have two? Pick one. I just have one name. I'm just an asshole. And that's true. And I'll break it down right now. There's Persian and there's Iranian. Iranian is like, a connection to your like nationalistic identity, right? It's like patriotic. Persian is like, cultural heritage and diesel. And the traditional Persian gathering place is the club. The traditional music is like DJ Doctor. I actually went to a club and there was a DJ and his name was DJ Doctor. DJ Doctor, which I thought was awesome because it was like this perfect integration of his parents' expectations with his art. It like paved the way for so many other DJs, like DJ Engineer, DJ Attorney at Law, DJ Chiropractor, I have my own practice, it is a 6-digit salary, marry me. I was impressed. So it's Persian, and Persians are usually like, they have like the, Justin Timberlake hat, right? And the traditional clothing is Prada. And Persians are usually like, hey baby, what's going on? Do you like to dance? You like to party? These are my diesel glasses, baby, what's going on? And Persians, that's Persian, Iranians are like, hey baby, what's going on? Do you like to dance? You like to party? This is my Prada jeans, baby, what's going on? And that's the difference between a Persian and an Iranian. That's it, that joke's not going anywhere else. So, Vahid introduced me as the person who believes that all atheists are Muslim. I guess I suppose I should explain that. Or not, and then just be like, the answer is on my website. It's like spam that you get. You are being hacked. Click here. Wait a minute. So my now husband, I just got married. Thank you. I've joined the world of bureaucracy. It's wonderful.
Give it up.
And he is atheist and I'm Muslim. And at one point when I was 25, I thought it was a really good idea to tell my parents that we were moving in together and that he wasn't converting. And that was that. And I thought, that's what I'm doing. And there was a big fight, and that's why I have a show. And my father was going through all of these like logical, contortions in his mind, trying to like reconcile this for himself because he didn't want to lose his daughter, and his daughter like this white guy, and not that white guy, a white guy. He is my whitey white infidel atheist, Southern Californian surfer boyfriend. And my dad was like, well, the word Muslim just means one, technically, by definition, means one who believes in a force greater than himself. Christians, Jewish. This is my dad. They're all the same damn shit, man, okay? We all believe in the one God. We surrender to that God. And I was like, well, Duncan, how whiter can you get? That's his name, Duncan, doesn't really believe in a God. And my dad's like, come on, he's atheist. What is that, like some kind of Christian shit or something like that? And I said, no, he believes in science. And my dad was like, you mean like that Tom Cruise shit? Tell him to convert, man. And I was like, no. He doesn't believe in God. Not a God, not any spiritual power. He believes that we have religion due to the lack of a real economic infrastructure. And my dad thought for a minute. I will tell Duncan. My dad thought for a minute, and he said, well, does he believe in a force greater than himself? And I was like, he's not spiritual, Dad. And he goes, oh, come on. Does he believe in a gravity? Is gravity greater than Duncan? I don't know. Maybe it is not. Maybe he's like, I am the Duncan. I am the only damn shit in the whole damn universe. Everything revolves around the Duncan. Is that what he believed? And Duncan was like, I believe in gravity. And he's like, okay, he believes in gravity. It is a force greater than himself. He surrendered to that force. He cannot change it. He's a Muslim. So I would welcome you all to the religion of Islam. Welcome. It's a fun ride. And it's quite popular with the NSA, which is what we're here to talk about. So, as a Muslim, I am a Muslim feminist Iranian-American comedian. Thank you so much. I say that all the time, and usually I don't get this gesture, but usually I get people who are like, you're Muslim, but you're feminist, but you're Muslim, but you're American, but you're Iranian. Where is that? And it's nice. It's nice to be celebrated. In terms of ethics, I am an ethical dilemma. As a Muslim feminist comedian. Muslims apparently don't have a sense of humor. I love this. I love it when people say this. People are like, Muslims don't have a sense of humor. Oh, you're a Muslim comic. That must be rough. Muslims don't have a sense of humor. They don't have a sense of humor. They don't have a sense of humor. And I'm like, I know, it's so funny when drones are just killing your family. It's like, can you laugh more? I know, pity is something comedians appreciate. Thank you. She looks so sad. She looks so sad for me. But seriously, right? It's just like ridiculous. When people are like, 1,000 Muslims were like protesting that cartoon. They were just so pissed off about a cartoon. They were just that angry. They were so pissed. And it's like, yeah, they were probably just pissed about a cartoon. That's probably it. I don't think we need to do any further digging. I think we have reached the most logical conclusion to be led to. I don't think we need to dive any further. We've discovered it. It was a cartoon. I think we can move on this file. We're done. It's ridiculous the way that, politics around Muslims gets boiled down. I feel like in the DSM-4, they need to make like an edit or an adjustment that says just like, there's people who are like, borderline personality disorder, right? You're following me? And then we have, like psychopath, we have sociopath, we have post-traumatic stress disorder that we know leads to different kinds of, pathologies, right? And then we have the traditional, 1950s psycho Hitchcock crazy. And then we have Muslim. People can just be Muslim. They have a bombing and they run an investigation. And then they're like, well, what was the reason? Why did it happen? Well, he's Muslim. Oh. Job done. I figured it out. And as a Muslim, I feel like if I am the monster, because Muslims, we're the monsters right now, right? He's looking at me like, no, I accept you. But other than Peter, the rest of the world, we're the monsters right now. We have it. For a while, there were the Jews, and then the Buddhists. The Buddhists was their turn for a while. A lot of people don't know this, but 60 years ago, the number one threat to the United States of America, deemed by the FBI, was Buddhist youth leaders. What's that? I don't have no idea what you mean. I didn't hear anything that you said. But you're in the audience and I'm on the stage, so shut up. They were the #1 threat to the United States, which sounds ridiculous to hear now, right? But like if I talked about a Muslim youth leader, you'd all be like, what's that about? What's going on there? Right? And then now, like Buddhism is like America's favorite religion. We're the stepchild. Everybody loves Buddhism. Everybody wants to be a Buddhist. Like everything about Buddhism is great. And it's all over Pier 1 and Cost Plus. Which just means that 60 years from today, all of you guys will be going to studios, rolling out your prayer rugs, and being like, I'm getting my 5 days of prayer. Five times I pray today for 5 days. I'm getting it in. I pay the studio and I roll it out. It's just really a nice containment for me. That's what's gonna happen, and Madonna will still be around. Oprah will be dead. Nobody else will have lasted. Madonna will still be there, living off alfalfa and like beans and enemas. And she'll be like, I am Muslim now. And everybody will be like, yeah, that's why I wear hijab now. Hijab is a fun thing. If you ever feel like your rights are being encroached upon as a woman, just, do this, right? Just do this. And everyone will want to check to make sure that you're liberated. Are you liberated? Are you a liberated woman? Are you liberated? Have you liberated a Muslim woman today? Nobody gives a fuck about feminism, but if you're wearing a scarf, then everyone wants to make sure that you feel free, and that you're empowered now that you're on American soil. This is just funny to me. Okay, I'll accept that. And nobody cares. So, okay. How do I feel as a monitored lady? Hot. Really hot. And I feel like, if I wasn't being monitored, and everyone else was, I would kind of feel left out. And if I am being monitored and nobody else is, then it's pretty flattering. Is my policy. I also am surprised that, given that Obama basically right now has, Nixon power, right?
Yes.
Shouldn't he be doing more with that? I feel like if we have the, equivalent of a Nixon regime, but it's a Democrat leftist, shouldn't all of the Paula Deans be being outed right now? All of the fucking dirty laundry coming forward? What the hell is this? He's that kid in the schoolyard who has, access to this incredible weapon, and he's like, I would like to use my wits, but I will use drones on Muslims. It's this policy. I'm just that, I think that is what bothers me the most about it, right? Shouldn't we have more? I feel like basically Obama is a closeted Republican, is what it proves. That's what we have here. He's a closeted Republican. No? Everyone agrees and it's just truth, but not a joke. Is that what? Amen. That's all it is. Well, I can say that as a Muslim and an avid Facebook poster, I don't know that I need to be monitored. I'm pretty much doing the job myself. They know what I had for breakfast this morning. And I wish that the NSA would just do a better job of helping me out if they are watching. Maybe they, from up top, could let me know, am I making the right life choices? Am I going down the correct career path? And if they are watching my husband, what is he doing? Could you pass that information along? I feel like maybe we could be a little bit more generous, NSA, and establish a two-way relationship. And that is what I would like to leave you with. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, awesome. How about another round of applause for Zara? Thank you, Zara. Well, I would like to introduce our headliner, famous Bay Area comedian, political comedian, Mr. Nato Green. Mr. Nato Green, get on stage, my friend. Come on.
Hey, everybody. Who are you people? I can't tell. So are you activists? Are you civil libertarians? Are you tech people?
All three.
All three? Both?
Hybrids.
Oh,
Both of all three.
what a boring group of people. So my name is Nato Green. I have a and also civil libertarian tech people are possibly in the running for the most earnest people of all time. Am I getting that? So I have a Google alert set up on my name, so that I get emails when people talking about me on the internet. I get emails that say things like Nato Green doing a comedy show, and Zionist Arab League gives U.S. NATO green light to intervene in Syria. Okay. So here I've been trying to think about your theme and your dilemma about the NSA comedy situation. And here's I think we can all agree that there should be less use of government police and surveillance and security powers on the American people, except for people on Reddit, because fuck those people, quite frankly. Reddit, it has basically some sweet like East German design aesthetics. Like imagine the interface of Craigslist with none of the useful information. And Reddit is very popular with people who like to get as close as they can to the line of child pornography without crossing it, and the men's rights enthusiasts. So, but they're also very militant about being anonymous. It's a huge website for militant cowards. So I think that's an interesting demographic. What was my point about that? So here's the other thing is that the problem is that what did I write down? Oh yeah, so people I don't understand what the data mining system is for. It seems, as a Jew, I imagine that it's just like, look, we have all this stuff. Isn't it nice? It's nice, isn't it? Well, what do you do with it? Not sure exactly. We just have a lot of it. We have a lot of information, and most people, that when you ask them, like, what are you afraid of people knowing about you? It's porn. It's just porn. And I feel like if people just disclose more publicly what porn they were into, we would take that power away from the, you know what I mean? If it was just like, everybody, on the count of three, at the same time, say your favorite genre of porn. 1, 2, 3.
People being monitored.
No. So you like some good bondage porn, a little bit of what you would call a panopticon of porn, for 4 people. There you go. Good. So and the thing that's interesting is that like people think that the internet, like you were talking about the cloud, like the internet is it's the cloud, it's in the sky. But it's weird that you can like fly to Seattle and then drive 3 hours out and fucking see the internet. Like there's a warehouse out in Central Washington. It's like, oh, here's the internet. I've looked at the Google map. It's around the corner from a Subway sandwiches. You can go and get a BLT and look and be like, oh fuck, internet. I thought that was just between us. But that thing that I was looking at, but here it is right here. I didn't want the whole world knowing that I was posting comments on the Yahoo homepage under the username Puppy AIDS Nazi Killer. I didn't want people to know that I was still using Yahoo. So and the NSA it's a very tough argument that about why like I have friends who study torture, right? And it's a tough argument in favor of surveillance as a solution to security problems, because basically the argument is, would you rather be tortured? And that's sort of a tough sell. On the other hand, I also think, like, there's something about it that also seems like bullshit to me because, like, I feel the same way about surveillance as I do about war crimes. Like, once you go to war, shit happens. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, we don't like surveillance and we don't like torture. We're okay with bombing entire villages of children, though. We're okay with bombing people, and we're okay with banks and redlining, but just not surveillance. If they could just not collect data about us, then the bombing is fine. And that just seems dodgy to me, as a matter of principle. The other problem is that all of this stuff is getting litigated in the court system, and I don't know if you've seen a picture of the Supreme Court recently, but the youngest justice is 52. And I think we can all agree, like, when was the last time that you were like, I really want to know what old white people have to say about the shit I'm into? Like, that's never happened, and I feel like, I just feel like old white people should not be allowed to rule on things that don't involve them in any way at all, ever. Especially, I will double down. I mean, it is like sending me to Boca Raton to, like, judge a pinochle tournament. It's just not appropriate. I'm not involved. It's not my area. Leave me out of it. You know what I mean? Like and so as a result, there's this whole thing. I read one of the court decisions that there's a tiny constable rule. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
It's the small policeman. They're asking, what would the tiny constable do to determine whether or not they could put a GPS on your car if they could have put a GPS on your horse-drawn carriage in 1792? If it was possible for a tiny policeman to follow you, then that should be the legal standard. I mean, I will give Scalia credit for out-of-the-box thinking, but it's not. So, it's fucked on all sides, because, right, I mean, I feel like Obama's presidency has really been a teachable moment about the futility of electoral politics. When Obama was inaugurated and he said, America, this is our moment, he meant it literally, moment. And then I blinked, and then it was over. So, and so, like, he's totally whack in many ways, and I feel like part of the thing is that, like, people think that the right wing hates Obama because he's the first black president, and it's not exactly that. I've studied the matter. It's related to that. The reason white America hates Obama is not that he's the first black president, but the possibility that George Bush was the last white president. White America finds that quite threatening. It's like, oh no. We thought we were going to get more chances before the end. If that was going to be the last one, we would have tried to close stronger. You know what I mean? And then on the other hand, the right wing is crazy. Like, their whole thing is hating the government, right? We need less government. We need to get the government out of people's lives. But for people who spend all the time talking about how much they hate the government, they put a lot of energy into being involved with the government. And that is not a sign of mental health to devote your life to things that you hate. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't like camping, but you don't find me at REI shouting at people. Like, fuck your sleeping bags. Well, why are you here? I don't know, actually. I'm very confused. I think I need a power bar. But I'm not optimistic about any of this. Like I don't feel like nothing, like, we can't fix gun control. That instead of having gun control, whenever there's a massacre, politicians say that they're sending their thoughts and prayers to the families of the victims. And fuck thoughts and prayers. If something bad ever happens to me, do not send me thoughts and prayers. Send me food or medicine or your Netflix password, something I can use. Like, none of us have ever seen a movie preview that was like, in our hour of need, one man thought and prayed and turned the tide of history. And then we're not getting anywhere on peace between Israel and Palestine, just for one example, because we're still arguing about stupid things like whether Israel has a right to exist. And I just want to point out that whatever your position on the matter, arguing about whether something has a right to exist is an appropriate conversation before it exists. That it is a pre-existence conversation. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are many things that I don't like, and I can just say that I don't like, but once they exist, it's like, but I don't think you should exist. Like, it's just, but I do exist. So now what's your move? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's, and then we're not getting, we can't solve immigration. I have some friends who think, that we need to, actually, let me tell you this, I've crossed the border. I went and done a border crossing from Mexico and Arizona, and it's fucking scary. There's military checkpoints everywhere and guns and stuff, and like I was with a delegation of artists. I was the only white guy, which is relevant because we were all scared, and we called our families. We're like, I hope nothing bad happens to us, and we don't know where this is going to go. And then, and it's just an interesting moment of insight into myself, because I was like, I wonder how bad things would have to be before I went, hey, I'm white, get me the fuck out of here. This has got to be good for something. I will send help, everybody, but you need someone on the outside. I'm going to go on public radio and talk about this. I'm going to chip in. And it turns out that a lot of the illegal immigration, people aren't trying to move here to live, they're just trying to move here to work because this is where the work is now. And so instead of like spending all this money fucking, and the border is just the shittiest commute of all time. And so instead of spending all this money like militarizing the border and policing people, we could solve the entire immigration problem by just lining the border with bags of cash. Just spend the exact same amount of money, and people would be like, thank you, America, now I can go back to my farm. So I have some friends who think that we need to stop calling people illegal, and I think we need to stop calling people alien, because no one ever says alien in a nice way, like Alf. The word alien conveys an image of invasion and conquest, but I've known a lot of illegal immigrants, and in my experience, they're not here to invade and conquer America. In my experience, they're here to clean up America's shit and make America's food while America sleeps. So we have to talk about people in metaphor. We should use an accurate metaphor. Not aliens, elves. How would it change? How would it change the policy debate if we all said illegal elves? And this is what I want to say to you, is that, look, before I was a comedian, I was a union organizer for a long time. People want me to make jokes about the labor movement, but I think it's tacky to make fun of the dead. But I'm like the Jason Bourne of activism. Like I have this level of muscle memory about activism. Like I'll be in a situation, I'll get heated, and then the next thing I know, I'll black out, and 50 people have signed a petition. Like I'm that guy. Actually, here's the thing that I've done. I've been in public places, and the security guard will go like, "You can't be here," and I'll go, "Why?" And they'll say, "Because I will call the police on you." And I'll say, "I'll tell you what, I'll call the police on myself," and then I do. And that is a hilarious trick you should feel free to try if you're white. I am told that if you're not white, that can get a little bit ouchy. So now, but here's your problem as people who are concerned about the NSA, who are also tech people, is that no one likes you. I don't know if you've heard this, but in San Francisco there's some gentrification afoot, and people are pretty mad at the tech people. My dilemma is that I like a little bit of gentrification because I've seen life without gentrification. It's called Fairfield, and it sucks. I like a little bit, like not so much that I get evicted, but enough that I can get creme brulee. Like I just want to be in the sweet spot. You know what I mean? There's a bandwidth that I would like to target of the right amount of gentrification. And so the tech people have been coming, and they're like, see what I did? And the tech people.
You don't like technology.
I know, I don't like technology. The tech people, come in and then have been complaining about like this neighborhood and the homeless people on the streets in this neighborhood, but I actually like the homeless people more than the tech people, because the tech people walk around on their phones and they're like, hey, I've got my fucking IPO and I'm Instagramming and I'm very important. And the homeless people are like, hello, are you Quetzalcoatl? I've been meaning to talk to you. And I'm like, great, let's fucking catch up. So I'm ready to have that conversation. And I used to have an office across the street here. The first time I came to my office, you just gotta have an open mind. The first time I came to my office, I parked my car right here, and I got out, and there were a bunch of people sitting on the sidewalk injecting themselves, and my first thought was, oh, I had no idea there were so many homeless diabetics. I learned something. I came to it with an open heart. So what was my point? So the tech people. And people have been saying, like, it's not the tech people, it's the money. And I'm fine, like, people are like, you're a Luddite. No, I'm not anti-technology, I'm just anti-massive inequality. Like, I would be fine with all the tech people if they all made $60,000 a year. And then we would be cool. Like, I just feel like San Francisco should be for everybody. I want everybody to feel comfortable here. Look, you're trying to get away from death squads, you want to make apps, you want to get a face full of dicks. There should be room for all of us here to live as one community. Do you know what I mean? So there was this guy like Tom Perkins, because of all the people being mad at the tech people, this venture capitalist. This is the last thing I want to say to you. It's the venture capitalist, billionaire Tom Perkins said that he was worried about a progressive crystal knot, that people were demonizing the rich, like the Jews in pre-Nazi Germany, and I think we need to seriously consider that. Hear me out. When I think about doing to the rich what were done to the Jews in Nazi Germany, I think they can already be readily identified by their gold stars that they wear. They already live in segregated ghettos, neighborhoods. You call it Pacific Heights or what have you, but if we built fences around their communities, I'm sure they would appreciate it. I'm fine with taking their stuff and moving other people into their homes and sending them to labor camps. Basically, I'm okay with doing to the rich everything that was done to the Jews, except for the violent part. I support a non-violent Holocaust. I support a semi-final solution, if you know what I'm saying. And then we could say, like, first they came for the billionaires, and I did not speak up because I was not a billionaire. And then they came for the millionaires, and I did not speak up because I was not a millionaire. And then things were pretty much cool after that. The rest of us got along fine. It turns out we didn't need them at all. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest.
How about a big round of applause for Gato Green? Please give us a great day. Now I'm going to ask our panel to join and come on stage. If Justin Hall would please come up. April Glaser from EFF, and Peter Ffoulkes from 451 Research Group. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, April. Thank you so much for being up here. Could we get 2 more mics? So, are you guys having fun yet? Yeah. That's what I want to hear. All right.
And I'm Peter Ffoulkes, as you know. And one thing Vahid, I think, is totally comfortable with this. Yes, I work for 451 Research. My employer is not responsible for me. I am here on my own behalf, and yes, I have a lot of information that comes through my work, but I am going to be here representing myself tonight and not my employer. So therefore, I'm going to express my own opinions, and you guys can absolutely go for it. But please don't blame my employer for anything that I may say or do.
Great. So, well, now that you started it off, Peter, why don't you tell us, we're going to do a quick introduction of you and April. So go ahead and tell us what your, profession is and describe what you do.
Okay, so, I've been in the IT industry for a long time. I spent after university, which I did a maths degree, I spent the first 7 years being a math teacher. I got fed up with being poor and under-resourced. And so I decided...
Children?
I loved children.
Oh, sorry.
No, the kids were great. I loved doing that. The issue was more that I felt that the system didn't actually allow me enough space, and it didn't actually allow the kids to do what they needed to do. So I decided to move on. So I bought some microcomputers. This is back in, I'm an old fart. So this was back in like 1980. And I set up a computer department, and then I moved to actually working with a program to use computers in schools to further education. And then I joined a computer company in 1984. As a sales guy, had a lot to learn. And then 91, I moved to the States with digital equipment. Spent about 5 years in Boston, dealing with changes in the computing industry, and then moved to California in 96. Spent some time as an industry analyst, an analyst. I've spent most of my life actually on the vendor side, working in marketing and things, working with IT, and now I'm back as an industry analyst watching the changes. And there's huge change at this moment. Now, at the same time, I'm going to try and make this short. I have very strong beliefs about privacy and rights and all the things that are happening right now, and I'm more than happy to have them challenged. And that's why I want to set myself up as, yes, I have some information, but I'm speaking as myself. But I am very concerned about what we're seeing in the changes in the industry, and it really, from my perspective, is not so much about people like the NSA. That's clearly an issue, but it's the whole area of privacy that I'm seeing, and I'm very concerned about that. So that's my introduction.
Awesome, Peter. Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you could kindly pass the mic over to April. And I know, April, you're one of those fiery activists from EFF, so you're representing EFF.
So who here has heard of the Electronic Frontier Foundation? Yeah, thank you. We are suing the NSA. We've been suing the NSA since 2006. And I'm not going to tell you my whole life story like Peter did, although it was a little interesting. Thank you. No, I'm being a little honest as well. I'm supposed to introduce myself?
Well, actually, introduce
the Electronic Frontier Foundation.
The work that you do. Tell us about what goes on
the
there.
Electronic Frontier Foundation stands for EFF, and what we do is we make sure that your rights go with you when you go online. We work on all kinds of issues, whether it's patent reform, copyright reform that fosters innovation and doesn't stifle it. We also work for our fundamental basic human right to privacy, and that's part of our work in suing the National Security Agency for, spying on us and everything we do and say, because we believe that, you're not going to say what you would say otherwise if you know that someone like you nice people or maybe the not so nice people are listening to it and collecting it and can criminalize you for what you've said. So I don't know if you heard Peter say he's not... You're speaking on behalf of yourself. I'm also speaking on behalf of myself. I won't iterate it as much, but I also come from a perspective as a privacy advocate. So I guess
you should feel free to speak on behalf of Peter too.
And I'm also speaking on behalf of Peter. Yeah. So Peter's also a privacy advocate, and you all are. And if you're not now, you will be by the end. Hopefully, I'm a little convincing, just as I'm a little honest. Let's see, EFF, that's it. And I'm April. My background is in tech policy. I don't make six figures, but I do work in tech, but that's because I work in ethics and tech, but not your company, ethics and not ethics in.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great. Well, thank you, April. Thank you, Peter, for being here tonight. What I really want to know is, what lights the fire of you guys in EFF since 2006? What do you got against the NSA? I mean, according to NATO, all they're after is our porn collection, and maybe the worst thing that will happen is people find out, they stop browsing porn online, and we'll have a revival of the corner porn store. So the DVDs will come back in. So what's bothering the NSA?
What's our issue with the NSA?
Yeah, what's bothering the EFF with the NSA?
Well, we have been at it at the NSA since 2006, but we've been protecting digital rights and privacy since 1990, which is before I was born, which is not true. But our problem with the NSA is that we feel that what's at stake is freedom of expression, and our Fourth Amendment and our First Amendment rights, most in the most basic form. Like what's at stake with our cases if we don't win our cases, or if depending on what happens in those cases, the First Amendment will be reinterpreted, right? What we say is that if the government is listening to everything you say and everything you do, like I said, you're not going to say what you would say otherwise. Freedom of expression is not simply being able to say whatever you want. It's being able to say whatever you want without being afraid to. And there's a difference between a company collecting that data and a government collecting that data that can criminalize you. There's actually a difference there. And although we do have extreme consumer privacy concerns, we want to make sure that our government, that is supposed to be a protectorate of our fundamental rights, and in fact representative of us, and protecting those rights as part of that representative function, doesn't actually break the laws that they're supposed to be protecting. We're at a place right now where the government is acting unconstitutionally and is breaking the laws that they're supposed to be protecting.
But what if the government's protecting our data and our rights?
If the government's protecting our data, well, are they protecting our data? What they're doing is they're inserting vulnerabilities into our most basic, into our encryption products, into our technology, and they're actually making us all much less safe. So they're not protecting our data. They're actually making us more susceptible to attack.
Well, NATO talked about the BLT and the internet in Washington, but there's an immense data storehouse being built in Utah that makes me feel safer about my data on the internet.
Yeah, it's 100,000 square feet of storage space that they're building in Utah. You're absolutely right. Have any of you guys heard of the Utah Data Center? It's really crazy. It's super big. Like, it's way bigger than your USB stick or your thumb drive, right? That holds all your songs that you kind of like. Yeah, so the 5,000 square feet of that space is dedicated to America's phone calls. Of the 100,000, the rest is like our internet data, probably mostly Netflix. Streaming takes up a lot of space. And the world's phone calls, the world's internet data. It's massive. We can't even really comprehend the amount of data that's being collected on us and the facilities that are needed to hold that.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
What's up?
What's up?
So.
Oh yeah, WhatsApp. That's an expensive thing, huh?
So, why do you think that the government being able to fuck with us is worse than corporations being able to fuck with us? Or other citizens being able to fuck with us? You know what I mean? Like, I brought up Reddit because Anderson Cooper outed this asshole on Reddit, and people got mad at Anderson Cooper for censoring that guy, and there was this whole conversation about like, was that censorship or is that just a consequence for that guy being an asshole?
So it's not a matter of one being worse than the other. We actually tried to sue AT&T.
I need a ranking system.
And they 10, 11, I don't know what you want. Okay, but we tried to sue AT&T, and they were actually given immunity because they are being compelled to. They're not being compelled to collect their data, but they're being compelled to hand over that data. So when it comes to who we're targeting to get the kind of policy outcomes that we want to see, we're targeting the government. And quite frankly, these companies exist under a government, and they have to abide by those laws. So we're kind of just shooting our arrows at the largest actor.
Yeah. Can I interject there? I
Please.
totally disagree. I have my own opinion as well. And I think the government is actually a lot worse in having that data than private corporations. And the reason being is that ultimately a private corporation, and I'm quoting Cindy from EFF, would say that the government can put you in jail. A company can't. Now a company can sell your data, they can try to sell you, they can try to provide you with information, market to that. But they can't put you behind bars for your thoughts, but a government can. And therefore, a government having your data is a hell of a lot more dangerous. But Peter, I'm curious from your perspective. I want to know more of your history. You started with 1984, but let's get a little way back. You've got an English accent, my friend. Tell us.
Very far eastern California these days.
Came here for the weather. So it's good to have you here, Peter. But what I want to know is, back in the UK, how is privacy and privacy, as you call it? Sorry, how is it different in terms of it's viewed by the public and by the government? What is the differences that you see there?
They have massive privacy rights and very few privacy rights. It's quite technical.
And that's actually a very good observation, and it's a great question, because we're talking about the NSA here, and I have my thoughts on the NSA, and I certainly want to declare that I fully support everything that April has said and is doing. I don't share all of the opinions. I have a different perspective, but I'm totally in support of everything you're doing.
So you support me, but you just don't share my opinions?
I have a different perspective, but I absolutely believe what you're doing is necessary and good. The other side of it is that the rights that we have in the US do not exist in the UK. GCHQ, which is the UK equivalent of the NSA, firstly, does even more, I think, than the NSA is doing. It doesn't have the same regulation. And given that I position myself as an old fart, when I was working in the UK as a salesperson, I went down to sell computer equipment to one of the UK government sites, which is one of the intelligence monitoring sites. And to even go in there, I had to sign the Official Secrets Act. Now, in the UK, what the Official Secrets Act means is that you walk out of that facility with a blank piece of white paper that nothing is written on. And if they don't like it, they can prosecute you, and they've given you the right to do so. So the UK does not have the citizen rights that the US does. I mean, there's a reason why I live here. I'm still a Brit, but this is my home. But, I think basically what I'm trying to say is I think privacy rights, however you want to pronounce it, are absolutely critical. On the other hand, in my work in the US, I've worked with people in the NSA. And, there's an issue with the right that needs to be surfaced. The one thing we can do is we can do what April is doing, which is try and hold the government accountable. And that is absolutely critical. But we have many fewer vehicles to hold the public corporations accountable. And they are doing the same kind of data mining. They are selling our data. They are exploiting it in many more ways, and they're not regulated. So, what I would like, my position is I'm absolutely in favor of the privacy and all the things that April and her organization is doing. I just don't want it to be focused entirely on the government. And part of my reason for that is that, as some of the people that I've worked with in the NSA have said, we have to get it right all of the time. The terrorist has to get it right once. And fundamentally, much as I don't want anybody reading my email, which is why I don't do Gmail. I don't do Facebook. Because, Mark Zuckerberg might be positioning himself as a philanthropist, but that's spelled F-I-L-L as he's filling up his bank book. And he won't even let me spell my name correctly.
I just like to say wordplay after all wordplay.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure people notice that there was wordplay.
Yeah. Sure. But, basically, I have a weird name. And I thought Zara, if I pronounced that correctly, did a fabulous job. And I'm sort of an atheist. And if I could be potentially an honorary Muslim, I would be extremely honored if that was possible to me. Bottom line, though, is that I spell my name with 2 lowercase f's. It's a Welsh language thing. Mark Zuckerberg won't allow me to spell my name correctly, as it is spelt legitimately. Now, I would be very happy to lend him one of my spare f's and exchange it for one of the z's. But the bottom line is, there's an arrogance there, there's a control there, and I don't want all of my information out there being data mined, etc. I actually know what the NSA does because I've worked with them. Now, they can't tell us what they do, but I've been involved in very comprehensive but also confidential discussions about the capabilities that they need, because they're not allowed to tell people what they do. Therefore, when they're buying computer equipment, they have to tell people what they need and they have to get it right. But my fundamental principle here is it's a bigger infringement of mine to be blown out of the sky than it is to have the NSA know who I'm calling. And so I'm not so much worried about the NSA. They can check anything that they want to, as far as I'm concerned, because to me they're the lesser problem, because they are regulated, and people like April here can do their good work and go after them. And it's much less easy with the commercial organizations. And I will say one more thing, 2 more things here. One is, I moved to the USA in 1991, and I started coming over here in the mid-80s. And one Christmas, I was married to an American woman at the time. I'm still married to an American woman, just a different woman, in my opinion, a much better one. But we used to come over here for Christmas. Well, we used to fly Pan Am, and we very nearly booked on Pan Am 103. And a month after, I drove past Lockerbie and saw the hole in the ground. I saw where those houses were. I saw the devastation. 9/11, I was in Toronto. I was presenting to a room full of people that had a couple more people here. I had about 200 people in the room, and the cell phones started going off. And it was like, what the fuck? You know, I'm talking to a room full of people and they're picking up their cell phones. Then we started finding out what was going on. One plane, then two, then something else. Now, what transpired from that is I actually knew personally 2 people who were killed in that attack. One was on one of the planes. He was a professor at, at Massachusetts, Amherst. And the other recently just reunited with his ex-wife. They got back together. Somalia on Windows on the World. They both died. One of my company's VPs of engineering died in that attack. So my perspective is, yeah, I'm really a privacy advocate, but at the same time, I'm a safety advocate. And where is the line? Where is the grayness? And that is, I think, the really hard thing. It isn't about a simple right or wrong. It's about where do we draw the line? Who do we call accountable?
Can I give you my perspective on that?
Please.
Because, NATO, you want to chime in? Go ahead, my brother.
Please.
Please, chime in, NATO. You want to say something?
No, I was just going to say no. You're not allowed to give a perspective. But then I would decide that'd be rude.
No, so what I'm going to say is this.
I'm exercising rare self-restraint. I want everyone to savor the moment.
You're savoring the moment? Oh, okay. So, when you look at what happened in 9/11, I'm truly sorry about the loss of your friends. But as someone who looks at the whole issue of security, and when I see $20 billion a year being spent on the NSA, and at the same time, that's just one of the US 17 security organizations. Now, every day, our office is here at 5th and Mission. I walk up and down the streets here in Tenderloin to park my car, and I see a devastation here in our streets. And I look at the costs that we're spending and the benefit and value in lives that we gain back through these 17 organizations and all the spying that they're doing. And I look at it and I can't seem to do the math and say that it adds up, that it's worth spending $20 billion on the NSA while we spent half of that looking for the next rock that might wipe us out like the dinosaurs. And, I think NASA, its contribution to technology is a lot more meaningful than anything that's came out of these security agencies in the past 14 years. And I would say 9/11 was not uncovered because of, that. And if the intelligence folks, you brought up a very thing, and we're discussing intelligence. If they wanted to know the intelligence, what they would have done is we would have taken the Saudi royal family that was here as part of bin Laden, and we would have questioned them, not let them get on flights using the same intelligence and get out of the country before the FBI could ever investigate or talk to them. And we wouldn't go out and shoot bin Laden in the head and dump his body so fast. We would have captured him alive and questioned him about Al-Qaeda and found out all the ins and outs. And I think that would have been a lot better value and dollars spent than all of the NSA's contribution in these past 14 years. So that would be my perspective. April?
Yeah, let me also say, I don't measure the value of my basic human rights based on those that have died due to criminal acts. I think that, and nor do I base it just judged on like a dollar amount spent on violating those basic human rights. I think that I know actually, and there's studies, and I can get into that, not even studies, but facts, knowing that
Let's not drag facts into it.
Okay, let's not drag facts into this.
Why start now?
but let me, and I'm also not going to talk for too long because I want to have a conversation, but I'll just say that, it's, sorry. Go ahead.
It is about the rights. It is fundamentally about the rights that when I took an oath and became an American citizen, I actually had to read the Constitution. And it's the rights that I can't have this conversation in Iran. And it's the same rights under the Fourth Amendment, under the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment for the free speech that I wouldn't have in Iran, that I'm exercising here today. And that's why I'm proud to be a US citizen. And I want to make sure those rights are preserved as the way I swore to them. Not that they're going to be changed and modified because now there's a security risk that might pop up in the future, and we're spending all these billions of dollars in protecting ourselves, supposedly of the future.
And let me just say that using investigative techniques are far like to the tune of 99% more effective than the data that's been garnered through the NSA. And there's been numerous studies that have come out tracking people that have come into the United States that are known to have been affiliated with Al-Qaeda. The studies that show that those people have been found, their affiliations have been found using basic criminal investigative techniques. Had those criminal investigative techniques had thoroughly been applied in the case of 9/11, I'm not going to get into 9/11 because I don't think that that's necessarily what's at stake here.
What do you say was an inside job?
What? I'm not getting into the truther inside job thing. I'm not doing that. But what I am saying is that using the thorough and criminal investigative techniques that we have at our disposal with the CIA, with the FBI, that don't violate our basic privacy rights. So looking at I think over 200 cases of people that were accused or are known to have been affiliated with Al-Qaeda, they were tracked using investigative techniques. I think just 1.8% of those people were found using data that was extrapolated through NSA illegal unconstitutional spying. You don't need to violate our, and who knows even how much of that data that was used was actually applied, and this applied to, maybe they could have not used that data. They could have done more criminal investigation.
This is really fascinating. I think what you're making me realize is that we've really set the stage for a revolution in how we keep ourselves safe. And it has to do with these social networks and the amount of data that we put in these networks about ourselves.
Why do you realize that?
Well, because if we just turned down some of the privacy filters and made it really easy for citizens to report that when they saw something out of place or when they saw someone on a social network doing something bad, and we just allowed everyone to sort of unofficially join the NSA and sort of just say, look, I'm looking out for security. I saw someone doing something irresponsible on the internet. I want to report it. And then suddenly we could take that $20 billion for the NSA. There'd be a lot of out of work mathematicians. They could be absorbed into society. They could work on income.
You can't absorb mathematicians.
Yeah, they could work on income redistribution.
At least we could compost them.
I think. We compost in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Compost.
I mean, we have to look at the pollution elements here.
Right. I don't think, we were talking about Facebook a second ago. I don't think they're that smart. For myself, I know that when I look at Facebook, sometimes I get ads simultaneously, side by side, that Facebook will advertise to me for tequila and rehab. They'll advertise to me simultaneously for Mitt Romney and Bill Moyers. Pick a side, Facebook. But April, I wanted to ask you a question. What do you know about the rationale for these surveillance programs is that they have something to do with security and preventing threats?
Something, yeah.
Allegedly. What do you know about things what do they call it, mission creep, and them being used not against foreign terrorists, but against activists or other types of civic expression?
Oh, well, these surveillance programs don't just target activists or people who are in dissent.
Don't say activist like it's a dirty word.
Oh, I'm not. Actually, that's my title. My job title is an activist. And if I gave any of you my business card, it would say April Glaser, activist at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and I'm very proud of that. But what I will say is that these surveillance programs aren't targeting activists. They're not targeting. What they're doing is they're bulk collecting. The Verizon order that we saw that was revealed as a result of Snowden's leaks in January, and this order is an interpretation of Section 215 of the Patriot Act that was interpreted in a secret court, the FISA court. And we only know about this because a whistleblower released these documents not through social media, but actually through encrypted means, not through public means, to a news agency, or not to a news agency, but to journalists. What we know as a result of this is that, and this is a quote, the Verizon order said that they are collecting all of the phone records every day of all calls going into or from the United States. They're not targeting people. They're bulk collecting. There's a big difference between getting a subpoena or a warrant that calls for the necessary and proportionate amount of information needed to collect the information or build evidence on a case, and bulk collecting everything on everyone that you hold on a shelf to be queried later in case those people become...
But April, there's this guy who volunteered to do PR for the NSA, Edward Snowden. He basically said what they're doing is too big and it's too important, I gotta tell the world. And one of the things he told the world about is that the NSA was collecting data on people at the climate talks. And they were collecting specific, and you just said they weren't targeting people, but they were saying, look, we are watching the people who are negotiating these climate treaties. We're going to pass the information back to the United States because we're a good actor on the climate change, and we're going to drive the,
I'm sorry, what climate change are you talking about?
Haven't you seen it snowing here?
Oh, Edward, snowing, right, we were talking about Snowden. Okay, so are they targeting climate change activists?
Well, I think yes,
is the answer.
NATO brought up the point of mission creep, but what they were saying, look, the economy needs help, the earth needs help, we're going to get involved.
And you want me to respond to that?
Well, I just think, when you say they're only bulk collecting, I think they're
only
taking...
bulk collecting.
Well, I think they're also taking moments to try and be useful in specific instances.
So to insert some facts here, excuse me.
I just want to give a moment to a shout out, now that as long as we're mentioning it, to the bulk bin at Whole Foods.
Oh yeah, it's super great.
I'm a fan of bulk.
Okay, so yes, they're bulk collecting on everybody at one layer in terms of our phone records metadata, which Vahid mentioned before. But they're also targeting people for in certain groups for more specified or thicker levels of surveillance. And of course, I consider that to be, toxic to democracy, and I can get into that.
So, Peter, they were also saying they were collecting data, for example, the Australians on the trade negotiations in Indonesia, where a local US-based law firm was involved. So the Australians, in return, were spying on the US lawyers for benefiting the trade negotiations on their behalf. So what I'm curious at is, what is the impact of all this spying and surveillance on, first, the consumer of technologies in the States and in Europe, and what is its impact on places like in the UK and in Europe? Would you talk a little bit about that, maybe?
Sure. What I'd also like to do is first say, I am hugely concerned about all of the things that have been said here, and I do not disagree or oppose anything that's been said here. I'm concerned with a wider picture. The one thing that I think is maybe wrong with this is that we're looking at the NSA and we're missing the bigger picture of who else is collecting information and what's going on. So, but once again, I absolutely support what April is saying. Moving on, and also very much what you said about being a US citizen. I'm still a UK citizen, and I absolutely support what you've said, Vahid. I am hugely concerned about this. And one of the things that I think I'd like to make before I move on to Vahid's recent question is that regardless of what we think of the NSA, they're a tool. They are not the people that are directing what they do. And therefore they sort of do what they're told. Now they may get it wrong, they may have mission creep, all of those things exist.
But don't you think that if you spend $20 million on a tool that you're going to use it?
Well, I agree with you. But at the end of the day, I think it's the politicians. It is the people in control that are directing things, which are the bigger problem. Now, April is clearly disagreeing with me, and that's fine.
I have facts again. I'm sorry, guys.
Well, that's fine, and facts are the important thing, and I'm quite happy to be wrong here. And if I'm wrong, and I will defer to April's facts.
Peter, one quick comment.
But to come back to your question about Europe, one of the big things that we've seen, and Edward Snowden came out and did what he did for his own reasons. June last year, I was in Germany just when all of this stuff broke. The first thing that happened was I was talking to an associate of mine who is the head of high-performance computing at a European university. And they were about to go into a contract to use cloud computing to put student data and other things into the cloud. And they suddenly found out that although they were based in a European country, metadata, which was with one of the companies that was listed in Edward Snowden's first 10 companies, I'm not going to name who it was going to be stored in the US. It killed the thing stone dead. Now this thing has had a huge impact. Basically in the US we're still getting our knickers in a twist. about privacy and other things, but mostly from the law. If the data stays within the 48 contiguous states, it can be regulated, it's living within the auditability, it's living within the regulation. In Europe, the Germans don't want their data governed by Irish law. The French don't want their data governed by German law. The Brits by the Italians by the Swiss. The Greeks probably don't even know where their data is. And, there's a huge problem. We had a data point from one of the big companies in Europe that does cloud services that said 15% of their people were now getting seriously concerned about legal data sovereignty, that data had to stay within a certain country. And this stuff is changing the way everything is being done for good reason.
Well, Peter,
because people want to know what is the legal responsibility. It's costing billions of dollars, but the thing that's good about this is that we are surfacing legal and privacy rights. Now, whether April and I agree or disagree on some of the nuances, I don't feel that I have any dissonance with the principles that you stand for.
I'm sorry, we don't disagree on the nuances. I think we disagree on what I consider to be fact, and in fact what has been revealed. The Congress does not know what the NSA is doing. Some members of the intelligence committees know what has been going on, but they don't even know the extent of what's been going on, and that's been revealed through numerous hearings. And the more that they know, the more legislation is mounting against it. And the reason why Congress doesn't know what's going on is because what's going on is being revealed in secret court. Who here has heard of the FISA court? Can you raise your hand? Okay, that is a secret court. It was developed in 1978. And in that court, it's an ex parte court. So basically what happens is someone from the NSA... I'm sorry, there's a question. Is it... I don't.
Let's wait for questions.
Okay, sorry. Basically, what happens in the FISA court is somebody from the NSA, an advocate from the NSA, goes in and makes an argument and asks for a broad order to be issued. There's no advocate for the public interest, nor are those proceedings in the public. Like, they're not on a public docket. Congress doesn't have access to those proceedings. Not even like intelligence committee members have access to those proceedings. Things get revealed in hearings. Congress is not aware of what's going on, and that's why certain members of Congress, particularly Jim Sensenbrenner, who wrote the Patriot Act and is a Republican, has drafted new legislation called the USA Freedom Act, because he's really mad. And what that legislation is set to do is it's set to rein in the NSA and bring it back within the bounds of the Constitution. When you say that Congress is in control here, that's actually not correct, because what's in control here is a secret court that is unfortunately not accountable to the public, nor is that information being brought to our representatives that are supposed to be acting on our behalf. I'm sorry.
Please don't apologize, because because I don't disagree with the principle, and I may well be wrong here in what I'm saying, and I don't have a problem with that, because I absolutely support what you're saying. It should be done, it is the right thing, and the public does deserve to know. So I'm not in disagreement with anything that you're saying, but what I do feel strongly about is that we're focusing on a smaller part of the problem than really exists in the world, and part of it is the corporate stuff that is not regulated. So beyond that, so once again, if I've positioned things wrongly, I'm happy to accept that I'm wrong. I fully support what you're doing, and I fully support the need to do what you're pushing for.
Wonderful. So Peter, one question that I had, you mentioned NATO.
I have to split.
All right, NATO, thanks for coming out. Big hand for NATO. NATO Green.
Buy my album or you want my children to starve. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So, Peter, the question that I had for you was in regards to your comment earlier. You said that, the NSA is the tool and the government oversees that tool. When you look at folks like Daniel Ellsberg, when he did the Pentagon Papers, he worked at that time for the Rand Corporation. When Snowden released all these documents, he worked for Booz Allen Hamilton. So aren't the tools the companies right now that the NSA has contracted out to, and the data actually does not reside with the government? It resides at companies like Booz Allen Hamilton that are controlling that data? Isn't that where the data repositories are?
The data is all over the place. And I think part of the issue here is that it isn't that the NSA, yes, they've got this great facility they've just built in Utah, but they don't have the capacity to store anywhere near the sort of data or phone records. I think there was a comment in the last couple of weeks that maybe they monitor 30% of stuff. But whatever it is, and I don't have data on this, so I'm not trying to defend them, the bottom line is, I believe there is a bigger issue. You know, I am equally concerned, as all of you are, about the rights of what's going on. I just feel that we are targeting one organization which should be held to account, and organizationally and governmentally should be fully held to account. But I believe we're not necessarily looking at the wider picture. You know, why did Google, Microsoft, Amazon all go to the government to complain about what was going on? You know, it wasn't because they're morally concerned about data. It's because they're really shit scared that all of us will not freely give them their data so they can mine it and sell it to everybody else. How many people have you heard about, or do you know, that have lost their jobs because they posted a picture on Facebook, or they've been photographed by somebody else? I mean, we have a huge privacy issue here. And yes, it's absolutely correct. And I think Vahid has said this very well about the fact that the government actually has power. They can arrest you, they can put you in jail. And we have corrupt politicians, there's no shadow of a doubt. But the question is, what's happening to the rest of this data? It's also infringing upon our privacy. It's also coming up, and frankly, you know, I get like 10, 50, I don't even use Facebook. I do have accounts, but I don't use it. And I get 10, 15 emails a day from Facebook.
So Peter,
saying,
this is...
Well, I want to finish this.
Okay.
So, you know, saying, you know, do you know this person? Do you know that person? I haven't had a single email from the NSA saying, do you know these 5 terrorists and do you want to make friends with them?
So Peter, that's an interesting point. You talk about the big picture, you talk about these companies. I love that you're from England making this point, because when I think of privacy in England, I think about all the cameras in the streets. And then I think about who's watching them. And I think about how, again, back to this idea that we could just be open with the data. If all the security cameras were just on the internet, and you could say, I wonder who's banking, I wonder who's eating fast food, who's waiting for the train, hey, that guy looks suspicious, hey, she looks hot, you know, or whatever, and then you could get involved with those people's lives, you know, being able to reach through the screen and sort of draw people closer together, sort of introduce people across the train platform because you're watching the surveillance footage. I just think, you know, that society, your homeland is pioneering that kind of awareness that people could have for each other.
Anglophile over here. Okay.
Well,
I agree with you. I mean, actually, you know, when I go back to the UK, and I totally agree with you there, you know, I go there, A, as a tourist, and B, I'm horrified by that 1984 kind of society. You know, basically, you know, I'm not the best person on the planet. You know, I do things that I'm not always proud
you urinate
of.
in public, or
I pay by cash.
you litter.
I wear a hoodie and I pay by cash.
Well, so that sounds very good. I just think
cyberpunk.
I think all this gets to data literacy. How do we know what our data is? Who has our data? Who controls our data? And one way to raise data literacy is just being able to look at everybody else's.
I agree with you.
I also pay by cash, but...
Yeah, you know, I love the idea of transparency, Justin. I think we should start with the government. We already pay for the government's data. Why is it that we can't see, you know, how they spend? I want to know if the guy at the DMV is actually on his Facebook, or he's processing my application when I'm standing there. And I think you, from your home, if you want to monitor it, you should. We have tools like Odesk. As an employer, I can monitor what my employee does on his machine. So why shouldn't we have transparency when it comes to the government's work on our behalf, and our senators, and our lobbyists, and the people that are putting these people in power, and the judges, and see every single one of Chris Christie's emails public and pushed out there to the web. And it should be available instantaneously, so we can see if they're working for us or not. So I'm more on that side of transparency first. If it's good, let's turn this power and use it for the good of government transparency first, and then worry about selling your personal data like they're about to do in the UK, as you're aware, with the NHS, the National Health Services. They have now going to be marketing and selling patient records and data. And of course, we've been doing it in the States, but that's the kind of transparency that I would like to see. I want to open it up to questions from the audience. So I want to make sure, if April, you
I
want
would like to make a
comment.
final point because there is a big difference between the terms of service agreements that you click to accept when you decide to use Facebook or Twitter and the secret the interpretations of law that the NSA is using to justify the bulk collection of all of our personal details that are used to offer a broad portrait into our every movement, our every associations, right? So when you accept the terms of service when you use Facebook, fine. But in those terms of service, it doesn't say, oh, and all of that data is also going to the government. That's a big difference. And what the government can do, like Vahid said, is imprison you, is find out all of your associations, find out if you're perhaps a potential criminal. I mean, the possibilities are endless. I mean, right now, perhaps they're not doing that, but we actually don't know. And we're actually seeing, through various cases, that evidence that's been collected through NSA, bulk, unconstitutional, illegal collection, has been used in court cases illegally and unconstitutionally to criminalize people. And those cases are now being reconsidered. There is a big difference between using a private company's social network and being a citizen. There's a difference there.
Peter?
And firstly, I fully support everything that April has just said.
Saying that.
Well, I do, because
It does.
the problem, I honestly do. I don't want to be monitored by the government, and I fully accept the government can put me in prison. There's lots of reasons why they could do that. I just want to expand this to everybody, because the problem is, I can't hold Facebook accountable. I can't hold Google accountable, but I can lose my job because of what happens there. So therefore, I do fully support what April is saying. I just believe there's a bigger picture that is beyond what she's addressing.
And let me just say, you can hold companies accountable, actually. And although they are not elected representatives, and although they might not, be working for us in the same way, they don't get government paychecks, you can hold them accountable, because what you can do is you can vote with your feet, right? You can decide not to use those services. Or what you can do is you can pressure them. You can say you can boycott. You can do things. You can decide you can change your behavior. But changing your behavior doesn't change the fact that the government is collecting all of your phone records, no matter which provider you're using, on an ongoing daily basis, no matter who you're calling into or from the United States. That's a big, big difference. You can vote with your feet when it comes to using a company. And although maybe you'll be socially isolated if you don't use Facebook, like that might be the case. But again, in the Facebook terms of service, you're not signing away a window into your private personal associations to the NSA. There's
April,
a difference.
I'm sorry, there's so many tools
Well, we
out
now
there.
know that you are.
What are the NSA terms of service? Did we get to click on that?
Yeah.
Well, we're just now learning what their terms of service are. We just now know what their terms of service are.
I think we're getting close to our QA time.
I think so too.
Two quick comments, April. We're going to get to your questions in 1 second. I think there is such thing as death by metadata. I think
Yes.
the drone strikes of today that we have done because of somebody using somebody's phone is an example of that. And I don't agree with you that you have a choice that you can simply walk away. I have two providers in San Francisco, Comcast and AT&T. They both
Monkey
sell data.
brains, you have 3.
So let's get into the
So
problem
how
of
do you actually
monopolization.
go and use various tools?
Sonic.
They all gone through the same fiber. So we're going to open it up. Justin, as I'm going to walk down there, you got any comments, last word? Just
Yeah,
before I
let's
wrap?
call on that guy. I mean,
Who's got a
let's
word?
just bring the audience in.
All right, if you could do me a favor, introduce yourself for the NSA on record, and
wait,
with
I
whatever
said if
name
we-
you like. It doesn't have to be a real name, of course.
Wait, hold on. I said if there was one joke here about the NSA, I already knew that I was going to walk away. Are we going to make those
No,
kinds
he
of
didn't say that.
Okay, good. Okay.
Hold on. All right, Mitchell, come on up.
My name is Mitchell Colbert, and there's just one word that's really important to me that I've heard danced around a lot, but I might just not have heard it, consent. And it seems like what April was talking a lot about with her last comment was consent. When you signed a terms of agreement in EULA, when I played World of Warcraft, I signed the EULA saying, you agree to all these terms, including we're not responsible for your bladder infections if you hold your pee too long because you're raiding. It really was added in. It happened.
Really?
But I never signed the EULA to the NSA saying that they could monitor me in all my conversations on the World of Warcraft. There's this big issue of consent there. Government relies on tacit consent. companies rely on actual given consent. That's a huge distinction there, and it feels like the NSA is kind of run rampant with people's tacit consent and all these secret programs.
Well, so that's why I think, the people in the government say that Edward Snowden is not a whistleblower, that he's some kind of, vigilante, that he's done danger. But if you think about it, he's done more PR for the NSA and the reach of their programs and the scope of their efforts and everything. So it's not implausible to think that Edward Snowden was actually a plant by the NSA, so we would all know more about what we're consenting to and what they're involved with.
Wow, what a plant that was. We're really paying for this service. Who's got the next question from the audience?
No, it's great.
Would you come on up?
I mean, I think April's point is our representatives are supposed to represent our consent, and since it's all hidden, they can't.
Maybe that's my point. My point is also a point about transparency and how essential transparency is when it has to do with this is about our fundamental relationship with our government, right? There are laws at play here that dictate how we live, how we move, what happens with what we say that we don't know about. We can't consent to laws that are secret, and that's what's the problem. I mean, one of the many problems.
So my question is primarily,
Hi.
hello, sir. Matt Hack, software engineer, and my concern is that as we expose some of these weaknesses in various software that have been introduced, even though they appear to be intended as targeted things that are distributed point to point, there's the perception that they may be distributed through the normal software update mechanisms. This, of course, calls into question the reliability of software from American vendors in the international market, particularly for systems such as process control systems, which of course are quite critical. Process control systems, for those of you not familiar, are things for manufacturing, chemical engineering, nuclear reprocessing, systems that are extremely sensitive to timing and other perturbations in their normal activity. Pardon?
Can we say Stuxnet?
I can.
It's sayable.
Stuxnet. Sorry. I just hit my own mic in the face. Stuxnet. That was the Iranian version of it.
As you've been reviewing these issues, I'm curious to know what effects the three of you have already observed in the international market and what future effects you believe you will observe.
Do you want to say? I can say something, but
Well, I'm happy to start with that, and I very much want to hear April's thoughts as well.
the insertion of vulnerabilities into our most trusted security products is a gigantic problem, and it's caused a lot of problems in our marketplace and our economy, but also in terms of the the technologies that we have to trust. But I can get into that a little later.
Sure, and once again, I think April has nailed a lot of the issues.
Talking about RSA, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely, we're talking about RSA. That is really scary. On the other side of it, I'm not defending anything here. We've got huge vulnerabilities. So, what have we got? We've got cyber warfare. I mean, we look at, what has been done with the Iranian, nuclear program, which, is very clearly cyber warfare. And, I don't know what the issue is here and who's responsible, but the general speculation is that it lies somewhere between the Israelis and the US. And there's not a lot of evidence that suggests either side was not involved. We're also looking at, but the bigger economic effects, you look at companies like Huawei, Chinese huge networking computing vendor, and they're doing very well in the world, and they're building commercial success. They're doing a huge amount of economic investment in Africa, so they're providing infrastructure and things that improve the community. They're sort of buying their way in, but companies do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But also at the same time, even though the UK actually accepts them, they're being targeted as someone who's, an agent of the Chinese government, and that, their products are infiltrated with things like we're saying about happening with the RSA, which seems to have a lot of evidence behind it. And yet, the problem that Huawei has is a credibility problem. And in America, most US people still haven't forgiven
the French. And the French helped defeat the Brits 200 years ago. So what helped Huawei got at China? You know, there are huge issues here. And once again, I'm not trying to take a position, but the point that you made is critical, because we are changing not only the politics, but we're changing whole economies and the way that people evaluate things. And to Adrian's point, we don't know what we don't know.
Well, I think this is why it's time for a rebranding of the American security apparatus, Citizen Cloud. If America provides free data backups for every citizen of the world, we're going to log your phone calls, log all your personal data. You can access it on our servers. I think that's a gift to the world that it shows off American might in technology infrastructure. It shows off our spirit of goodwill, and it's transparent.
Where do I sign up?
You already have.
All right, you got your first client there, it seems. So, you know, it would be inappropriate for an Iranian not to interject there when it comes to...
Would you please interject there?
So the way I look at the whole cyber war, which you're talking about, which is kind of is being waged. If going after nuclear facilities by Israel and U.S. intelligence agencies was the first step, or hacking by Chinese into the U.S. government was one of those, then what you see is the power of these organizations being used in places like Iran to censor and monitor communications during the Green Revolution and the Green Movement. So it is not that, you know, Nokia is in the business of protecting our interests when it comes to privacy. It is that Nokia will sell a monitoring solution to whoever will be the customer. If the customer is a rogue country that wants to go and do cybercrime, they'll find a way to go after it through third parties. It will never be distributed directly. And please don't sue me, Nokia. But that's how they would go about it. So we have started this huge now cyber warfare. And at what cost to other things in our society? And that's really a war that governments are waging, not just US government. But I would agree with you, Peter. It's being waged in places by companies like Vodafone that create kill switches. And then they charge the countries that they implemented the kill switches for loss of bandwidth and traffic for the time that the kill switch was used. So that's the kind of stuff that really gets under my skin. And my problem is, I don't think there's going to be a country left that's not going to get into cyber wars. And there's not going to be a place that I can go and hide my privacy or have it. So that's really my concern. And that's why I do these events. And love the fact that you're all here. So let's go back to the audience. Anybody else has any questions? Come on up.
Sorry, I just want to say we didn't really get to your question about the threat on U.S. business interests, but we can talk about that later.
Oh, that's a very important point. Yeah, let's answer that.
It's really
Absolutely.
important, and I'm sorry, but I did feel like you.
April, go ahead if you want to
got
talk
a little
about that.
tangential there.
No time like the present. Go for it.
Okay. Because the insertion of vulnerabilities into our most into the security products that we have to trust is a major threat to U.S. industry, right? It's a major threat to U.S. industry, and probably you guys who work in industry can speak to that better than I can. But all I'll say is that companies depend on trust. They need to know that who they're emailing, when they're emailing plans or trade secrets, are going to those parties only. Not to governments, not to other interests, but to those parties only. You need to know that when you're emailing someone, that when you're talking to someone, that you know who that person is, right? In order to trust that you know who's on the other end of that line, we have certain security mechanisms built into our internet to allow us to know who we're talking to, so that it's not some other person that might be faking that. We need to be able to trust our technologies. We have technology that's inserted into our bodies these days. We have technology that helps direct our planes in landing. We have technologies that protect our bank accounts, that dictate where our money goes when we think we're buying something.
So you're saying if the government deliberately handicapped those technologies, that would be hugely irresponsible?
I think so. And in fact, we kind of know that's what, so Revelations point to that's what happened, right? It's a major flaw, and it really harms our economic interests. And we also know that the U.S. that the NSA has been spying on corporations around the world, particularly in Brazil.
Well, they've been copying all the data from right here in AT&T building right?
Just down the street on Folsom Street.
Yeah, so what I would argue is that they're really not after our porn collection. That is that half the companies in Silicon Valley, actually, and startups have started by fresh off the boat people and first generation immigrants. And we innovate and we create things in Silicon Valley. And I would argue that it is not because of your game that you play online that they want to know. They're after actually intellectual property. And that intellectual property then becomes part of the apparatus for these agencies. And every single one of them do this kind of capture. The Iranians do it. If you build a site, you work on a technology in Iran as a developer, the Iranian government gets a copy. If you do it here in the States gets a copy. So I think ultimately, that is what is under attack, is entrepreneurship, it's development of technologies, it is the right of having 10 engineers in one room at DeveloperWeek and being able to create something and not having it be spied on. You know, that is the fundamental right of capitalism. So I'm trying to defend capitalism here by giving people back the right to invent and keep their inventions a secret so they can have encryption that's unique, that can't be cracked. And when the government takes that away, you're undermining fundamentally capitalism at its core. Go ahead, sir.
We need to trust our technology. We have to.
I had one comment, and what you just said made me think of something else. I'm a software engineer, and so I'm really offended at the thought that I could be working on something, and perhaps if it takes off, that I'm working on trying to make it secure or stable or whatever, and there's people on the other side of the world, paid for by my government, that I'm paying for my taxes, trying to undermine my own work to protect me from myself or something like that. You know, if they're trying to backdoor my encryption or whatever I'm doing.
They have. They're not trying to.
Right, I know, yeah. I haven't made anything cool enough that they probably care about, but I can imagine in theory.
There's nothing they can't crack.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
And there's nothing too uncool for that.
Yeah. But the other thing I wanted to say was about corporations versus governments. More of this, it seems like there's a certain dimension with the government that because they sort of make and enforce the laws, that the fundamental problem is like a policy problem. Because I'm an engineer, I follow the debates online. People are like, oh, don't use cloud computing. Run your own server. I know, if the FBI comes to my apartment building, the guys are going to let them take my server out of my closet. If I get a colo, they'll let the FBI in. You know, if I build some crazy bunker out in the woods, they're going to come with their tank or whatever, right?
Aren't you confident that McAfee or Norton is going to protect you with a firewall?
Yeah.
I mean, this is ultimately the question that I have is...
McAfee is part of the Intel community at that time.
So, it seems like fundamentally as a society, we come across these social contracts that you trust your neighbors or you trust your representatives of government. You know, there's examples of East Germany with the Stasi where everyone's spying on each other, you don't know who's an informant.
I mean, worse than that.
Metadata.
Yeah, I mean, it's an access that they have to a machine. If your machine is on right now and you are here with us, and let's say these vulnerabilities become more and more pronounced because they continue to increase and they become in the wrong hand. Someone can go and put some very unkind files on your desktop without you ever downloading it, but gaining access to your machine. And now you could be accused of having documents, anything from child porn to whatever. So how could you trust your documents, your machine? And that fundamental trust is what we want to restore back in the tech sector. And I think there's real benefit to do that for US companies, especially in Silicon Valley, and it needs to become a focus. So I really appreciate everyone taking part tonight. Peter, if you have any last comments, Justin, April, please share them, but I think for the sake of time, we are going to wrap up pretty soon.
Sure. So my last comment is that I just think this is a huge issue. And yes, the NSA and the government is clearly an issue. I'm just concerned about the wider issue because it's like, you've got Google that stands up there and says, so do you use Gmail? Well, why are you surprised that we're reading or scanning every single piece of content that you say, 25 million or whatever it is, and we're using that to send you ads? You signed up for it. So once again, I know that April and I don't think, she necessarily, agrees with my position, and that's perfectly fine. But I absolutely support what she's doing because I think it's huge. But I think there's just such a bigger picture in the whole world, and I think Vahid has said it very well, that we really need to be cognizant of what we're allowing people to do, whether it's corporations, whether it's governments, whether it's our own selves putting our own information out there and trusting things irresponsibly, that we're doing things that are very dangerous and are putting ourselves at risk. And, you know, to your point as a software developer or anything, you know, all of these things need to be surfaced. And it's absolutely obnoxious when you have an agency, commercial or governmentally oriented, that puts back doors into things and betrays the trust. Because who are you going to trust?
I can't disagree with that, Peter. That is so true. So thank you so much. Justin, you got it. April, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's a difference here because you're not, when you agree to do business with a company, you're not agreeing to give all of that information you give to that company also to the government. There's a big difference there. All I have to say is that what the NSA is doing and what they have been doing for a very long time, and like I said, EFF has been involved in litigation against the NSA since 2006, is completely unconstitutional and stifling to our freedom of speech and to our Fourth Amendment rights. You know, like
I can tell you that Peter and you are in agreement to that.
so, but there's a difference between getting a warrant that is within the scope of what's needed to collect evidence to build a case, and collecting everything and putting it on a shelf. There's a big difference, and Clapper might like to make, and Clapper, by the way, was the director of National Intelligence, might like to say that, you know, there's a difference between acquisition and collection, and what they're doing is they're just like collecting things. They're not like acquiring, or maybe it's vice versa. I don't remember. And again, I'm speaking on behalf of myself here, not EFF, although EFF has been involved in litigation against the NSA. Again, I'll say since 2006, they've been at this for a very long time, the NSA. What's at stake is our ability to have the breathing room that we need to develop our personal identities, to talk to people without fear of what we're saying is going to be used against us. Again, I'll say it, when you know that what you say is being collected and being listened to by a party that can use that against you, that can arrest you, by the government, then you're not going to say what you would say otherwise. These are the speech-chilling effects of a First Amendment violation. And it's really important to understand that.
So I think, you know, as a capitalist here in the room, I should give Justin the last chance to do a plug-in for his Citizen Cloud.
Well,
after all, this is cloud computing.
I actually wanted to get religious. I wanted to get religious because I think what...
Religious?
Yes, absolutely. Because, April, what you just hinted at is that we used to think of God, I think, in the sky, watching us. And that's sort of faded. I think, you know, the popular imagination does not have an all-present, always judging God in the sky who's watching us. Now we've created our own sort of sense of someone out there watching what you do. And you better be a good actor because it's being filed away and logged on a network. So I think we're in a sort of timeless tradition of humans needing this external source that's sort of watching us and keeping tabs on us.
You think the NSA is God?
Well, I think there may be overlapping attributes, but I think there may be a role in society played by the Old Testament God that we are now projecting onto the NSA, and that's something we're wrestling with. And I think what you said about people needing the freedom to develop their identities in public, free from scrutiny, it's a great challenge. Yeah, right. But in public, because I just had a chance to interview the journalist Quinn Norton, who is very articulate and very smart. And one of the things she says is all of our personal lives are now transacted in this semi-public sphere, right? Because you send all these phone calls, you exchange all this data, it all happens in the cloud one way or the other. It's all in the cloud. And because we're living in this cloud, suddenly we begin to have this awareness that we live, and this is Quinn's phrase, we live thousands of miles away from billions of people, but nanoseconds, right? So how do we as a human race deal with the fact that we are constantly sloughing off data and we're surrounded by everybody else's data, and what are we supposed to do to be responsible to ourselves and to each other and to be transparent and to be accountable? Very thorny.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Justin. Thank you, April. Thank you, Peter. Please, a big round of applause for our panel. Greatly appreciate you all coming out.